Wow. So Loki, I wonder why you call other people to do these conversations. You could just do it yourself, but I guess you want someone else to do the hard work sometimes. But thank you. I do love coming and having these conversations here at the Quorum. Priyanka, while we will get to being a woman in parliament and you know how historic that is eventually, we've really got to start with something that as a second generation Mumbaiker, I'm totally invested in. And that is what is happening in Maharashtra and what is happening in Mumbai. Because as a journalist, it's been riveting, right? From 2019, what has played out in politics here. And as a Mumbaiker, it's been dismaying because you really want to know what kind of governance you're going to get when politics is as cutthroat and visceral and rapacious as it has been since 2019. So, starting question, Priyanka. 2019, when you moved from the Congress to the Shiv Sena, did you imagine that politics in Maharashtra would be so volatile? Did you have an inkling when you were getting into the party that things were that bad with the BJP?
So, is this on here? On? You're on it?
Okay. It came from your mic earlier. Okay, by the way, this reminded me of pulling out something like the Khoke Sarkar right now, right? Okay, so yes, when you said 2019, did I imagine that we would be here? No, not really. I think nobody would have imagined or envisaged that Mumbai would see, Mumbai or Maharashtra for that matter, would see something, a long-standing alliance break up, a new alliance come up, a new model of governance come up, which came on the idea of taking the state forward and keeping our personal differences aside, political ideas aside, to be able to come up with a credible narrative of political parties who are talking about governance. This has not really been heard of. It was a good model which we were looking at perhaps when we saw the UPA. UPA also saw a whole number of parties coming together and giving good governance structure. 2004 to 14 would be remembered, of course, because of the fag end of it. There was a lot of corruption charges which again have not been able to, they haven't been able to prove them. But it was a good growth story for India between 2004 to 14. The same way the Mahavikas Aghadi came about, no one would have thought of it, but it gave a very good alternate idea of an India where you live with your differences, where you work alongside your differences, but you at least reach towards a situation where you'll debate, discuss, and decide. That is what was happening. You need to have a perspective from all sides, the good, bad, and the ugly, to be able to come up with an idea which will only take the momentum of growth forward. So it came as a good idea. Unfortunately, it did not last its term. But we are very certain this is, if you are looking at the Gram Panchayat results right now, people of Maharashtra have accepted that combination. So it is interesting. Yes, it is very interesting.
It's, so, I think we had the Andheri East by-poll today, right, for the MLA there. It's a pity that there was no BJP candidate, and we knew that the Eknath Shinde faction.
No, don't pity them. They don't deserve the pity.
No, it's a pity because we would know what the ground, what the sentiment at the ground would be towards the two.
They would have been slammed, thrashed, and shown their place. Really, we were looking forward to it. And I speak with that confidence simply because I know how Mumbai functions. I'm also a person who's been born and brought up in Mumbai, and Mumbai is at the core of what I am. The inclusive city, the liberal idea of what India stands for. It's everything, the melting pot that we call it. So, they saw a chief minister who came from Mumbai, first time ever in Maharashtra's political history, and those who are in the positions of power, chief minister, came from the city of Mumbai. Initiated tons of projects. He came at a time where sometimes, I read this particular joke which said, thank God we had the Mahavikas Aghadi during the COVID period. Otherwise, we would have said all the oxygen cylinders would have headed to some other state, and we would have only been told, "Case bada oxygen cylinder aayega, tab tak aap log, wait for it." So I would just say that that is why I speak with that confidence. Even the people of Mumbai felt betrayed with the kind of
politics they got to see. We've not seen something like this in Maharashtra. Maharashtra is not known for the language that we are hearing from each other every day and the kind of attacks, personal attacks that have come through, whether it was Adityaji during the government. We saw how they were very personalized, below the belt comments made about him, whether it was Uddhav Thackeray at that point in time. But we've lived through that, and they avoided this entire competition. But we are going to be having a face-off sooner or later.
Sooner or later. In fact, it should have been now. We should have already had that face-off for the BMC elections. I believe it will be next year because the matter is in court, the delimitation of wards. I won't get into that. But, you know, the question is, the words you describe the Shiv Sena with, as a person who's lived, you know, in Mumbai, as a person who is a second-generation Mumbaikar, like I said, we would never have associated these words with Bala Saheb Chi Shiv Sena, right?
Which words?
The melting pot, you know, liberal, inclusive.
Once you're done with your question, I'd like to correct that.
We would associate with the Shiv Sena at all when Bala Saheb was running it. So Uddhav Thackeray has conscientiously remade and is in the process of remaking the Sena, and more power to him. In fact, you know, this is an audience you would never have had. You've had a liberal, elite, non-Marathi Manus audience cheering Uddhav Thackeray and the Shiv Sena in the last 2.5 years, because the Shiv Sena is not what Bal Thackeray had created it today.
I wanted to hear your question before answering that. Firstly, I totally disagree with this idea of Bala Saheb ji did not want an inclusive Maharashtra or inclusive Mumbai. That is extremely different from what he spoke of. What he spoke about is India first, Maharashtra first, equality first, where we are not given superficial treatments or better treatment than the other. Or a Maharashtrian is not denied a job on the basis of being a Marathi Manus. He fought for equality for them. He fought for ensuring a space for them. Today you told me that you, a Shiv Sena person, is entering the corridors of a place like this. These are the gated communities which Shiv Sena thrashed. And I'm happy and proud of it that I'm part of this system now. And Shiv Sena is part of the talking agenda of people who had shut the doors on us, because we were talking about the very grassroots where Mumbai has emerged from. Today, if you say the unions are wrong, today if you say creating unions and speaking for people who are working in these gated communities is not a fight worth fighting, then I will disagree with you. I will disagree with you if you say that Mumbai is exclusively for some people and not for everybody. That is a Mumbai that we saw before Bala Saheb Thackeray ji. He made it an inclusive city, and his voice ensured that there was inclusivity. You may not like the way he expressed it, but he created that space. And what Uddhav ji has gone and done, he's only taken this forward, not through his words, but through his work. Anyone who would have followed Mumbai's history, Maharashtra's history, would see that Shiv Sena has come into power with the Thackerays, as far as the Thackerays are concerned, that they came into power through somebody else. Sure. In the sense, they had somebody representing the Shiv Sena. It wasn't them. This was the first time ever where Aditya Thackeray ji stood for an election from a seat which is considered very cosmopolitan, which is considered very inclusive at the same time, which is actually mini Mumbai. He won conclusively, and he's doing some great work there. And you had the chief minister who was a Thackeray at the helm. So now you've seen an idea of an inclusive Maharashtra which takes into the peasant, which Elon Musk just said, the peasant class and the elite class. So you brought everyone together, and we were just taking that momentum forward. So I totally disagree with this idea of Bala Saheb ji's.
That Shiv Sena UBT is
don't please call it Shiv Sena UBT. It is Shiv Sena. That's the fraud Sena. I'm sorry.
I'm just being very, very correct, factually correct.
Yeah, you could. I would say it's a temporary measure put into place, and it has come about. This is something which I must share. It came about because they went to the election commission to say that there's a by-election coming. Yeah. They ran away from that by-election. Yeah. They did not even have a candidate in the by-election, and yet they chose to do what they do. But I mean, if you look at the people of the city or the state, they're understanding what is happening. You cannot have such kind of majoritarianism where you have the power mechanism with you, you have the wealth with you, you have everything going for you, and then you will decide, listen, now let's just do away with the democratic principles as we've known for 75 years. Let's do away with the constitutional ideas that were, that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and spoke about. We don't need that. We need a new idea of India which does not include democracy as the main principle, functioning principle. Then we have a problem with it and we have to fight it with all our might.
Okay. So you addressed the one pillar of the Shiv Sena's identity, as a political party, or what it stood for, or its commitment was, which is the Marathi Manus. So protecting the Marathi Manus, the son of the soil, getting primacy, okay? And one thing has to be acknowledged, you said it very interestingly. You said you may not have liked the manner in which this was expressed earlier, and it's very different now, because what is most interesting in the last 2.5 years is no violence. Shiv Sena would rough up journalists, would rough up each other. There would be, there were, Sainiks. There were Sainiks, and Sainiks and foot soldiers in Bombay, in Mumbai, had a history of roughing up people. And kudos to Uddhav Thackeray and the Shiv Sena as you see it today, and the party you belong to, for no violence in this city for 2.5 years. Violence that had blessings of the Shiv Sena's leadership before the last 2.5 years. That's a big difference, isn't it?
So I have a question, and anybody can correct me. When was the last time you saw a big-scale violence that was perpetrated in the city of Mumbai by Shiv Sena per se? That is something that we bring about 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago.
So communal riots is one part of
Some decades ago,
Shiv
right?
Sena, Sainik,
Was it? No.
Thackeray has gone and spilled ink on Sudhendra Kulkarni. We've all seen
Not
that.
Aditya Thackeray. Please do not include him in this. No, it was not even bunch of young boys. It had something to do with a larger issue which had to do with India-Pakistan. We were seeing a war at the border. Kargil had just happened. We had seen our Indian soldiers die. We had seen somebody say, the Pepsi's entire slogan. And the very next day, unfortunately, he was dead in the Pakistani gunfiring. And if you say, nahi, aman ki asha karna hai us samay par, it is not going to just agitate. I'm sorry if it's agitated only the Shiv Seniks. It should have agitated every single Indian. We did it. And it is a past. Would you still hold Narendra Modi ji accountable for a lot many things that happened in, 2 decades ago? You are not doing that. It is not the case anymore. People are voting for him. Aren't they voting for him? Are you all asking him any questions? I'm sorry, but you may continue to talk about it in in many such forums. But people, once out of these forums, are voting for him. Are we going to deny that? Because that would be very hypocritical if we deny it. It happens. I mean, there's some issues which are learnings, where we learn from it, grow out of it, and also keep in mind the changing aspirations of a city, changing aspirations of a state, and how a political party connects to those aspirations. How it converts those aspirations into votes and support for its political movement is what Shiv Sena is now ensuring through its transition.
So the tiger can change its stripes?
The tiger's stripes will continue. It's only the momentum which, even a tiger chooses its directions before it goes into the attack. That's how we're working on it.
The other part of the Shiv Sena party's identity, commitment to political ideology is Hinduism stroke Hindutva, right? We all know that Bal Thackeray was known as Hindu Hriday Samrat. How is Shiv Sena UBT, Shiv Sena led by Uddhav Thackeray ji, different in its approach to Hindutva from the BJP's?
So I would answer it like this. And Hinduism and Hindutva, etc., Hindutva comes out of a political narrative of what Hinduism stands for. And I have a question to everybody. Would your Hindutva mean that we start creating class barriers, religious barriers, caste barriers? Would our Hindutva mean that we keep our morality aside and we use the same hate narrative, etc., to win votes? This is not my idea of Hindutva. Like Uddhav ji put it exceedingly and beautifully well. Dil mein Ram, haath mein Kam. That is what Hindutva is about. You keep your politics, you keep doing your politics. Again, the Hindutva's form of governance. When Shri Uddhav Thackeray ji became the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, he went to Ayodhya first thing. Did he make it about politics? No. He said, this is about my astha. And I'm not going to be speaking anything about politics or try to reap political benefit out of it, because this is something that I have fought for. We asked it to go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court had put it in cold storage. We revived that movement. It has come to this conclusion. He went on to, our political party paid some X amount of money for the construction of the Ram Mandir. Did we do it for political narrative? Did we do it for political gains? No, this is something that we believe in. And Hindutva model of governance, now I'll come to that. Hindutva model of governance would mean showing favoritism to none and considering everybody their family. It happened during COVID, where we saw that Shri Uddhav Thackeray at that point in time got he was in a very difficult position, but he did not show any kind of favoritism. He said, everybody is equal to me, and we all have to work together. There's no, X religion, Y religion, B religion that I'm getting into. Because that's not what I have been elected for. My job is to ensure that there is equality that remains, and that is enshrined in our constitution. This is Vasudeva Kutumbakam to the core, where the world is one family. So there is one section which can spout this Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and there's one which is implementing it. So how have we gone away from this entire belief? Now coming to changing the alliance, and if changing the alliance means, oh, you have given up the principles of Hindutva, then I would want to ask, when this alliance was coming about, who went back on their words? Does Hindutva way of governance teach you that? We went into an alliance on the basis of some commitments. If those commitments were not made to our party, then we are going to ask you questions. And then we are going to choose a political path which is best suited to take our agenda forward. We've done that.
What happens now? Because we saw what happened in June. Priyanka, I'm really curious. Your party was in power. Uddhav Thackeray ji was the chief minister. You were running the cabinet. How did we, as all of us here, how did we see that, the drishya of MLAs? Surat, was it?
Surat.
And then
Guwahati.
Guwahati. I mean, like, how did you not know? How did you not know?
So I have
was the police not in, was it not reporting to you guys? How were you sleeping on the job? And does it, while there are cheerleaders here and today, great takers for the Shiv Sena that Uddhav Thackeray ji is leading, the question is, how do we trust you to not be, taken for a ride?
Trust us for taking on a ride. I'm sorry.
Being taken for a ride.
Okay. Now I have a very simple question to ask. The first 8 people who went, whether intelligence failure, we can look at it in various forms. But if 8 people have gone, out of which 6 of them were members in the cabinet, are we saying that the members of the cabinet did not have any say? Are we saying that the entire government that was running did not take their voice and opinion into account? 8 of them going away, and are we to say, चलो मैं कहती हूँ intelligence भी हमारे हाथ में, हम क्या उनकी गर्दन पकड़कर उनको रख लें?
लेकिन आपको पता था?
नहीं, अगर पता भी हो, I will not get into पता था या नहीं पता था. मैं आपको ये बस पूछ रही हूँ. और second thing, आप कह रहे हैं कि how do we trust you? You trusted us and you saw our work in the 2 years of our COVID period.
I think your work, the fact that there's been no violence, the COVID management.
No, that speaks of our work.
There's really great sympathy, support and appreciation for Shiv Sena led by Uddhav Thackeray. Okay? There's no disputing that at this point of time.
The question
is, we cannot, given that we are talking about Chanakya Niti, we cannot expect the party we like to be, sort of treated in this, coming across as naive.
So, the question, no, it is not about being naive. It is about
trusting the wrong people?
Trusting a cabinet Trusting a cabinet, which was now let me give you an example. The person who carried forward this rebellion, and I call it the Khoke Sarkar, the reason why I mentioned Khoke Sarkar, the person who carried out the rebellion was second in command after Shri Uddhav Thackeray. How much higher can you go? That's point one. 30 years, no Chief Minister of Maharashtra has given away the UD portfolio to someone else. That's the level of trust. That's urban development. That's a level of faith. And not just UD, urban development. There were 2 other ministries attached to it. The second person, let's talk about the Agriculture Minister, Dadaji Bhuse. Let's talk about the water resources minister was from NCP, but there's a third minister, fourth minister, fifth minister. Are we saying none of them were heard? And let's assume that we got the intelligence gathering and we've realized that, oh, 10 of them are going and creating this entire scenario. Should we hold them by the neck if they've chosen to go? They would have stayed on for another 2 months and third month will create karte. And let's not do away with the fact. Today, Chanakya Niti, Chanakya, we keep abusing the name Chanakya so much, unfortunately, in these times. Chanakya did not teach you conspiracy or deceit. Chanakya taught you a way of governance where you look like a king, or because he was an advisor, you look like a king who's equal to all. He did not tell you कि deceit कर लो, तुम ये कर लो, तुम यहाँ पे गला पकड़ लो, agencies का इस्तेमाल कर लो, ED लगा दो, IT लगा दो, CBI लगा दो. It is so obvious for people to see that out of the 40, at least 20 of them have ED cases against them. And it is so obvious to see that cases have been put in a cold storage. Is power everything? And I think this is where Uddhavji comes from. That it is not about just power. Power should be used for goodness of the world, goodness of the state that you're given and the responsibility given to you. I think that is the difference. The fundamental difference is that there is somewhere no goodness left in politics and people expecting of politicians. Until that doesn't change. And if you call such deceit, such conspiracy, such backstabbing as Chanakya Niti, then God save Chanakya ji. He must be like turning in his grave like multiple times over and saying, "Har cheez mein mera naam le lete ho. This is not what my principles of Chanakya Niti were." So that is something which we have to, everyone in this room should be rethinking and recalibrating. Very important.
Interesting. No, and I think that's a point well made. I'm curious about another thing, besides what I already asked you, and that is it true that the bureaucracy in Maharashtra in the last 2.5 years was actually, not all of the bureaucracy, but key people actually sort of, they had allegiance outside of the government, A. B, we saw after Eknath Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis came back to power in June, July, some 44 bureaucrats were, there was some big reshuffle happened. We saw cases being dropped against IPS officers. So had the bureaucracy turned? Had the bureaucracy become politicized? Let's put it that way.
I think that's a very obvious question, and not just implying to Maharashtra, it implies and has implications as well across the nation.
Is the answer yes?
Yes, absolutely. Now, if you have, for example, the former army chief retires a day, and the third day he joins a political party, you have to ask these questions. Today, a bureaucrat who was a very senior ED official takes a voluntary retirement, and the third day takes a ticket from Uttar Pradesh to contest an election, you have to ask these questions. If today an IPS officer who was on the run is suddenly being reinstated or being spoken about settlement, you have to ask these questions. And I don't say it from a political perspective. I must share that I come from a non-political background. And these are the very things that used to worry me, and I continue to have these questions, that we are interlinking, and for that matter, why should I leave the judiciary aside? The Chief Justice of India retires and he comes to the Rajya Sabha. I think we need to ask these tough questions, and not just from my political narrative, your political narrative, or who you go to vote for. As a collective society that looks at India to go beyond what it is already doing for our children. Are we bringing in some values in our children? Are we inculcating some political values in our children, democratic values in our children, constitutional morality in our children? Then I'm going to say that no, we're choosing silence. We are saying, अरे हमारा क्या लेना देना, हमें क्या करना है, हमें तो 5 साल में वोट करना है, चलो हम वोट भी नहीं करेंगे, हम कहीं बाहर चले जाते हैं. And that I was not part of this sin.
Yeah.
We are all, and I think we need to relook at that. So it's not just a state of Maharashtra, it is happening across board, and whether it is through pressure, whether it is through, by choice, is something we can continue to talk about till kingdoms come. So.
Sure. No, you make a very, very important point about principles and morality, because we've stopped. We don't use these words in connection with politics. Definitely not in the last 10 years almost, because all we are focused on is winning and success and and the power that comes with it. So, Priyanka, at the risk of being the devil's advocate,
I know where this is heading.
Are you talking, and is your party today talking about a utopian society? I like what I'm hearing, but will you be able to run government, which is actually what I need?
Absolutely. We've run the government. We've done a good job with it. We were pulled down. The country saw how we were pulled down. What I would say is that, yes, there is no harm in bringing some ideas back into focus and discussing that, reimagining about when we talk about Amrit Kal, we're talking about आज़ाद, अभी we will be an आज़ाद nation, अगले 25 साल की हम बात कर रहे हैं कि 75 हो गए हैं, 25 के आगे क्या करना है. I'm sorry, I'll break into Hindi at times because आदत है, yeah, so as long as it's okay. तो अगर हम बात करें अमृत काल की, तो हमें इसमें बात ये भी करनी पड़ेगी कि जब हमारे फाउंडिंग फादर्स, लाइक व्हेन शी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड, आई फाउंड दैट सो इंटरेस्टिंग, जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली बनी, 100 से ज़्यादा मेंबर्स थे, उसमें से 15 महिलाएं थीं. 15 महिलाओं के सामने एक सवाल पूछा गया, जहाँ पे बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी वॉज शेयरिंग इट. ये पूछा गया कि क्या रिजर्वेशन महिलाओं के लिए इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहिए. शुड वी बी इंट्रोड्यूसिंग अ रिजर्वेशन सिस्टम फॉर वुमेन टू एंश्योर दैट दे कम इनटू द सिस्टम. इट वाज दीज 15 women who said we are talking about an equal nation, equal representation. They should not need a reservation to put them here. But now 14%, 15% जब हम बात करते हैं कि महिलाओं का नेतृत्व इतना ही है, और राज्यसभा में तो और भी कम है, और राज्यसभा में तो बहुत ही कम है, क्योंकि बाय चॉइस, बाय कॉन्शियस जजमेंट के एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी डिसाइड करते हैं महिला को भेजना इज अ ह्यूज कॉल इवन नाउ. And I must thank Shiv Sena for that, for taking that huge leap of faith in me to be able to do for the party whatever I could in the parliament as a parliamentarian, in the Rajya Sabha that too. So ये सवाल कहीं ना कहीं अगर हम ideas की बात करें कि how do we perceive this nation to be? Why should my children be looking at studying abroad when I can create these institutions in my country? Why should my children my daughter not happily step out of the home at 2 a.m. in whatever clothes she wears, whatever her body size, and step out and feel safe? That's not utopian. That's very much achievable. Until we don't all aspire towards those basic goals, basic needs that we have, I don't think we will continue to say कोई option ही नहीं है, कोई चारा ही नहीं है, इस goodness के कोई दुनिया ही नहीं है. दुनिया बनानी पड़ेगी, खींचना पड़ेगा उन लोगों को जो who believe in that goodness. वो सपना we have to continue fighting for, and it is not a dream which is unachievable. These are very low-hanging fruits, because Indian ethos is very much, a part of how Hindutva works, Hinduism works, of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. We are a country which gave birth to 4 religions. We are a country which has been the biggest country which has accepted refugees across the world, amongst the biggest. I'd be happy to say that. And that gives me a sense of pride. That speaks about my culture, about my values, my ethos. Let's not do away with that. That is a dream worth fighting for. It's not utopian.
Priyanka,
So we'll fight.
I think it sounds very good to hear a politician say this, and I am so sorry to sound cynical, but the political class is responsible for this cynicism, isn't it? But okay, let's take it. Let's accept what you're saying. We are looking at BMC elections hopefully in February, as it is they're delayed. If you go to the hustings, what is your sense of, I can sense that there is some sympathy, but the money is with the other faction, let's face it, right? Though your party has run BMC, which is called ATM, right? a BMC, ATM, whatever. So these are very critical elections. What is the sense? What are you all hearing? What does your party need to do to get Mumbai to vote you back to run the richest municipal corporation in the world, is it?
No. Amongst the five states, it has one of the largest budgets. Calling it an ATM and calling it various words, of course, part of the popular folklore, culture, narrative, etc. I have also been I have criticized them when I was in the Congress, but it's only when you actually understand, and I will tell you, and I'll just give you one small example of trying to understand the phenomenon that is called the BMC. And I continue going back to the COVID example simply because Mumbai came better prepared than any other state across the country, across the globe. It was Dharavi, which was considered the fulcrum, once this explodes, India has no way out. Mumbai has no way out. It was the BMC which was at the forefront of ensuring that it was driven by science, it was driven by data, it was tracking every home, it was tracking every part. They came up with strategies which were global practices, they were learning, they were implementing, they were creating these spaces. The first Jumbo COVID center came up in Mumbai. It was replicated in various other states. So calling it ATM, etc. would also be incorrect to say because they are creating huge infrastructure projects. The coastal road which is going to come up with before its time is something which will ease the problems of a lot of Mumbaikars. And in terms of implementation, no city in the world, I would say, every time monsoons में बार-बार हमें वहाँ पे ले जाते थे, वो कौन सा कलीन ये सेंटा क्रूज वाला है, मिलन सबवे, या दादर में, साइन का सबवे दिखाते थे. इस बार क्यों नहीं पिक्चर्स दिखाई? क्योंकि कहीं भी water logging नहीं हुई थी. And that was the work of the BMC along with Aditya Thackeray ji. Now, I will want to come to the...
But the BMC was with your party for 15 years before that.
अरे आप पूरी बात सुनिए. 120 mm रेन आ जाती है, बारिश आ जाती है. आप दिल्ली में 6 mm बारिश आ जाए, मैं रहती हूँ वहाँ पर. So, I'm just giving you the challenges that we face. The challenges that the city faces, and climate change is a big risk. और ये मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ, ये शिव सेना नहीं कह रही है, BMC नहीं कह रही है. Climate Change World Report कह रही है कि 2050 में the city will come down under. And believe me, if BMC is made to become a political puppet in the hands of those who want control over it by hook or by crook or through money, it is only going to damage the system. Now you say कि इतने सालों से हम लोग हैं, इतने सालों से जनता हमें वोट कर रही है ना, हमने कब्जा तो नहीं किया है, हमने ED, IT का इस्तेमाल कर नहीं किया है. Because people of Mumbai do understand one thing, and that is our biggest strength and biggest talking point which not many people talk about. And I have said it in an interview. राजनीति से परे, इलेक्शन आए जाएं, राजनीति चलती रहे, बंद होती रहे, पर आज अगर किसी मुंबईकर को किसी तरीके की दिक्कत होती है, वो सबसे पहले एक शाखा ही जाता है. एक शिव सैनिक ही उनके लिए खड़ा होता है, वही शिव सैनिक उनका काम कर देता है, गली का काम हो, यहाँ तक I was very interested, you must know this, कि मैं एक बार जब शिव सेना भवन गई थी, I was just new in the party, I realized there's a marital disputes cell also, कि तुम्हें क्यों कोर्ट्स वोर्ट्स जाना है, क्यों पुलिस में जाना है, हम सेटल कर देंगे, क्यों अपने घर बर्बाद कर रहे हो. Alcohol Anonymous cell also, कि अल्कोहलिक है तुम्हारा पति, वो भी हम सॉर्ट आउट कर देंगे. सो यू कैन इमेजिन दैट इज द लेवल ऑफ कनेक्शन मुंबईकर्स हैव. We will, perhaps many people do not understand the value of that, but many people do, and that is why they have chosen to vote for us. And now about money versus sympathy. Sympathy is one factor, support is another factor.
Appreciation also.
Whatever. The thing about money is, I will quote you the Bengal elections. Bengal election में क्या क्या नहीं खर्चा किया होगा. But when people choose to vote, they vote for someone who will be with them at all points in time. And that is what Shiv Sena has head above heels than any other political party in the current scenario. So we will come on our strengths, we'll play to our strengths, and we are very certain that people of Mumbai will stand behind us.
So Priyanka, as a Dadar girl, woman, I grew up in Shivaji Park, okay? Shiv Sena Bhavan was a stone's throw from my house. It's an old part chawl building. And what you say about the Shakha is so true. old men getting newspapers, carom, light, you know, simple things like that, dustbins. I've
Gyms.
seen, yeah, gyms, public gyms. So I've seen all of that. But the question today is between Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray ji, are the Shiv Senics a confused lot? And the Shakhas, who do these Shakhas owe their allegiance to? And what is the idea of the Shiv Sena in their heads and hearts today? Because we know about the Dasera rally, and we know that whatever way they were brought, bussed in, you know, paid for, but there was double the audience at BKC.
No, again, double is a hyperbole. Honestly,
I'm quoting news reports.
No.
Which quoted the police.
I would tell you, there was, okay, number.
But we know Mumbai police has been discredited now for a very long time, and also partly because of the Shiv Sena.
No, I'm not even discrediting them. I'm not going to get into that space. It wasn't double is something I can tell you, not because I'm a Shiv Sena supporting X party, Y part of it, but it was not double. B, the sentiment when you are in that space, in that place, and when people who are carrying sukhi roti and achar with them and coming all the way from their villages to attend the Dashera rally, I think that matters the most. And that, so Shiv Sena has seen various phases. 4 baar rebellion ho chuka hai. This is one of the worst of it because it gets a lot of support from the BJP in that matter. But there is no doubt in the minds of a Shakha Pramukh or Shiv Sainik. Have you seen a huge outpouring of people going, except for that region, the Thane region, which again, out of sheer trust in Eknath Shindeji, was totally handed over to him to be calling the shots. You have not seen that anywhere across the state. So the people are with us, the cadre is with us, and the sentiment as well as I wouldn't call it sympathy, I would say the overwhelming support coming out of the kind of politics they saw is something that I'm hoping that will turn it around and will teach those who do something like this a lesson.
Do you think Uddhav Thackeray ji, I mean, of course, this is all hindsight, but since, you know, we are getting a chance to talk to you, do you think he should have not resigned on that day when he did resign?
Again, holding on to something which he knew that was something that is not going to work out. And there can be, in hindsight, many people can say you should not have resigned, you should have spoken on the floor of the House and then resigned, etc. But at that point in time, his morality told him that if my own people, like he said when the name of Aurangabad changed to Sambhaji Nagar and Osmanabad changed to Dharashiv, he said there was just one feeling of hurt, that this was a dream that Bala Saheb ji had forever, but it was a Congress and the NCP people, NCP cabinet ministers who gave this approval, endorsement, and my own people were missing. And that, I think, it came to him. It was not about politics anymore. It was more about a question of morality, a question of that, should I continue being here? I mean, should I continue to be part of this dirty mechanism that every single thing is being used and every single thing is being taken to the court. So I will fight the fight, but I will fight it for my organization. So that is a call he took, and I think we all stood by him on that particular point.
I know that the anti-defection issue or case is with the Supreme Court. Do you see that? Do you see any resolution, anything come up there in the next, we are up to 24 October, isn't it? That's up to which, what time this government can last, or a little bit before that.
So I would hope that judiciary would be the beacon of light when all institutions of democracy are under attack, all institutions of constitutional framework is under attack. I would hope that judiciary would shine that light on how India needs to course correct and state governments need to be respected. Simply because, and I speak from the basis of not just emotions, but because of facts. Schedule 10 of the Constitution is very clear that a political party is different from a legislative party, is different from a parliamentary party. It is the head of the political party which will decide who heads the legislative party business. And it is the head of the political party who decides who will head the parliamentary party. No one else can defy that. And the political party continues to endorse Shri Uddhav Thackeray as their party leader. So every appointment that they have made in the legislative assembly or in the parliamentary party after the defection is invalid constitutionally. Invalid constitutionally. Now coming to the anti-defection law, which many people continue to confuse. Anti-defection law categorically, so there used to be a one-third. If one-third chalega, you can escape that anti-defection part. But two-third, they increase it to two-third, but there is very clear-cut way forward. They say that two-third have to merge into another party. For example, I'll give you the neighboring Madhya Pradesh. When Jyotiraditya Scindia left the party, he took two-third MPs with him, MLAs with him, and those two-third MLAs merged with the BJP. They did not form their independent unit. If they were to form their independent unit, they have to resign from that parent party where they have rebellion from. So, Mr. Eknath Shinde and his two-third MPs or whoever he's taken along have to resign and face the people and get re-elected on a new party symbol to not attract that anti-defection law. But if we continue to skirt that and say, oh, ye symbol bhi hamara, ye bhi hamara, again, Schedule 10 में clear है, political party का symbol विम्बल आप नहीं ले सकते just because you've taken 30 MLAs. आप ये सोचिए, I'll give you another example. भारतीय जनता पार्टी में आज rebellion हो जाए, क्योंकि उनमें कलेश तो चल ही रहा है. I mean, they are having this argument. There are 3 different groups within the state. But let's say 2/3 of the MLAs go away with Devendra Fadnavis ji. One day he gets fed up and he said, I'm going. Because you did not make me the chief minister, I'm going. 2/3 of them go with him. Will he become the Maharashtra BJP head? No, he will not. He cannot. He can be BJP, DF, BJP, whatever. You cannot claim ownership to that party. So that is the basic thing that I think people will of course understand and appreciate. And the Supreme Court is there's a 5 judges constitution bench, which will need to address this challenge, because tomorrow it could be another political party where they can do this with. There can be another government that can fall. It could be the BJP government that can fall too. Tripura, let's say TMC gets stronger and TMC pulls away 2/3 of their MLAs. Will BJP be okay with that?
Do you see the judiciary taking this up soon?
Like I said, I'm hoping that they will. They seem to be the only one who will be able to throw that light and be the beacon of light for the way forward.
Priyanka, I'm going to stop monopolizing this. Any questions? Because I'm going to shift completely after these questions. Yeah, sure.
And I'll bring it back. Sorry, I'll bring it to you. 1 second, yeah?
Ma'am, you always tell khoke ki sarkar, khoke ki sarkar. Still, if these 50 people come back to you, you will embrace them or not? First question. Secondly, you say they have taken 50 khokas. Out of 50, 2 or 3 may be loyal to you. They may come openly and say, these are the khoka and this person has given me these khokas and I have invested in there. Can you do this?
Can we do this, expose them for what they are?
No, because you are saying 50 people have cheated you. You are saying openly.
Yeah, 40 plus 10.
40 plus. You said they have taken 50 khokas. Openly you are saying this. In 50, 2 or 3 may having loyalty with you. May they come in open in a press conference in Mantralaya or outside the party.
If they have a conscience, we'll hope they come back and they expose to the world.
Can they say this is the 50 khoka which we have been
Again, it's a question of their morality, their conscience.
Are they not even loyal to you? Why 5% ki they can come to you and say because just to defend you?
वो सवाल मैं कैसे जवाब दे सकती हूँ?
Madam, say this is your question because time and again you are saying 50 khoka, 50 khoka.
No, I'm not saying
any evidence?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So you do a press conference in Mantralaya.
I don't think we need to do that press conference. Why should we do it in Mantralaya?
You call international press.
Okay, we'll do that. Good suggestion.
Madam, you will agree to it.
Good suggestion.
You will agree to it that there is a group which is for the last 10 years working to damage Mumbai. I hope you agree to me. One group is there who wants to damage this Mumbai. And when you came with the
Vikas Agadi.
You were there to protect the Marathi Manus and the Maharashtra pride. Because some Marathi BJP senior leaders are also with you. You may be knowing better than me. I may be knowing 5% or 10% because 5 or 6 intelligence or raw people may be my community member or may be known to me.
Then perhaps I need you on my side.
No, sir. I think, sorry, let me intervene.
Yes.
What is so you want to know whether if any of these people who are with Eknath Shinde come back and want to come back?
Yes, and say these are the 50 focus. And they have been given to me by this person. And you do an international press conference. If you are
I agree with you. हो सकता है time उसका भी आ जाए. And I'll call you as part of the press conference.
ये बड़ा भारी है, बेवकूफ जनता को बनाते हैं कि राइट टाइम पे हम बोलेंगे. जितने भी डिफेमेशन केसेस, एक पॉलिटिशियन ने दूसरे पॉलिटिशियन के अगेंस्ट किए, एक का डिसीजन आया, आप तो प्रेस से है, एक डिसीजन बता दीजिए जहां प्रेस में आया हो कि किसी ने पॉलिटिशियन ने एक पे.
नहीं, पर आप ये बताइए ना, आप तो कह रहे हैं, पर एक ने भी डेफेमेशन नहीं लगाया है, तो कहीं तो सत्य होगा. नहीं, अब मैं राजनीति से कह रही हूँ. मैं जैसे आपको बताती हूँ, कुछ दिन पहले मेरे ऊपर मेरे बारे में गलत प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस बयानबाजी कर बीजेपी ने एक कॉन्फ्रेंस की, प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की. मैंने उन पर डेफेमेशन लगा दिया. अब डेफेमेशन वो कोर्ट में जाकर आंसर करें कि मैंने, तो अगर हम लोग आपके हिसाब से हम प्रूव करने की भी जिम्मेदारी हमारी, काम भी हमारा, पार्टी डिफेंड करना भी हमारा, सब हमारा, तो उनमें से एक आकर डेफेमेशन लगा दें. हाँ. हाँ.
Hi, so I might be digressing a little bit, but I'm going to circle back to a point that you made earlier, where we didn't call out or aren't holding Modi accountable for his earlier mistakes. I think you mentioned that. So, with all due respect, please don't take offense to my question, but do you really think we live in a liberal democracy where we have the freedom to call out people for their mistakes in our government? Because I personally don't think we do. As an influencer, I can tell that we don't. But more than that, and more with regards to the future, if you can't call out a leader on his mistakes, you're going with the herd. So how are you ever supposed to follow someone new, someone like Uddhav Thackeray, who did have different ideas, who had something innovative, who had something that could be progressive for Mumbai, Maharashtra, India. But how are you actually supposed to get to a point where you can support that when this entire central government is against you?
Okay, so your question is one that can we speak up against a government where the entire powers have, I would say, unilaterally belongs, and there's a balance of power equation is on the one side only. Yes, sorry, yeah. So I would say your vote matters a lot. And your vote, even if you're not speaking up or you for whatever reasons, because you're under pressure, you believe that the entire machinery will go after you, then there is something called as your power of your vote. And if a group of people can get together and create a movement, we've seen movements happen. I think the last movement after the emergency was just before the emergency, the JP movement, was the Aam Aadmi Party movement. No, we don't. And that is where we stand right now. And that is why it's become so toxic that it becomes difficult. Every influencer, comedian, they have to think 10 times. A politician is one thing, but cricketers can't take political stances. Earlier, when there was an emergency, there was a Kishore Kumar who spoke up, suffered the consequences of it, and it has been chronicled multiple times over. But are we heading towards that where you have an undeclared emergency? Perhaps we are, because we're choosing silence. We're saying that why should we take this headache on? Why should we invite all the wrath? Whether it is people from Bollywood, the Hindi cinema world, the various other cinemas across the country, they're choosing silence because it unnecessarily attracts a lot of problems coming their way. It is unfortunate. We have to fight it.
Shiv Sena concerns also choosing silence? Because in some regard, accepting that the nationally supports BJP, that they have come into power, that there is no impression, the potential other opposition other than Uddhav Thackeray, maybe the Congress of the central government. Why are we choosing silence? Why is there no other government?
Actually, that would be incorrect to say. If you're following the Maharashtra politics right now, we are extremely vocal. If you're looking at the national politics, we are extremely vocal, the Shiv Sena. Though we are just in the power of 3 in the Rajya Sabha, we still make our voice heard. So I would say that it is about also, just one thing I'd want to say, this leap of faith that citizens will have to take. I remember the 2004 election, and every time the 2004 election comes into your mind, is because there was the same thing, koi alternative nahi hai, and Vajpayee ji was larger than life. India shining hai, sab acha hai, sab badhiya chal raha hai, and every person had the same thing to say. But there was a huge undercurrent in rural constituencies. Nobody could put a finger to that. And what you saw was a very different outcome. And I think that came out of leap of faith. Udhar bhi koi chehra nahi tha us samay par. Opposition was not united. Koi chehra nahi tha. So whenever there is a vacuum in leadership, there will be a leader that emerges. It is for the citizens to take that leap of faith that do we live in a democracy where everything becomes toxic every single day? We go to vote, but we don't have the power of voice. Or we live in a democracy where I remember in 2014, when the UPA became very unpopular, right from Mojo Rojo, he was Rohan Joshi. Then there were many other comedians who were slamming the UPA left, right and center. There were jokes on them. News channels were covering them. News channels were speaking badly about them. Narratives were being created. Didn't see them clamping down on anything. But right now there's this fear. Agar humne TV debate kar liye, hamara job rahega ki nahi rahega. So that, I think that will only come with a leap of faith. We are not willing to take this idea of democracy lying down, where we only come to vote once in 5 years and show that we are a democratic country.
Yes, sir. Just give it to my sorry.
What you're seeing as we are seeing a trend of merit being incorporated in politics, especially for the new age voters, right, where they are more concerned with work than the identity, like what Congress did to have a presidential election. Do you think to reinstate the idea that there is a leadership within this faction of Shiv Sena, or the family-driven faction, there has to be a demonstration of that through a similar form, where someone is being shown as a leader through a proper process?
Okay. So that is a very interesting question, but I must differ from the different formats of a political party. Two national parties who represent the nation, and Indian National Congress came out of freedom movement. Indian National Congress was part of the freedom movement, where all walks of people from all walks of life joined them in and said that there would be a collective leadership format. Started by Alan O'Hume, who was not an Indian. That is the legacy of Congress Party, and how it has emerged into a, unfortunately, because it's an attack that comes on them, is that it became a family-run party. But they did realize that a national movement party which came out of the freedom movement from people from all walks of life were part of it. It was like an umbrella, that you need to have this space. Let's assume for a minute that Rahul Gandhi ji would have said, "Nee, okay, I'm coming back." Would there have been this competition? There wouldn't have been an election. There wouldn't have been an election, but there is an election that has happened, and I think everyone should appreciate it, that there is an election, and Shashi Tharoor ji ran a very spirited campaign, despite him losing, but he ran a very spirited campaign. The first time I think India has seen in maybe 30, 40 years. But now the other side of the spectrum, about our political party. You must understand that our political party managed to gather momentum on the basis of a name and the promises and his commitment to that particular idea. And people got attracted to that. And that is why the question of their leadership being challenged doesn't arise.
If I could just make a small comment. It may not arise from your perspective.
But I think, just to supplement your question,
idea today is being represented, or what Mr. Eknath Shinde has managed to convince him, that is not about the Shiv Sena not being liked. It's about the leadership that is being preferred under his...
No, that is a preference that has been engineered. Let me tell you this very clearly. Has it won the... No, please. Has it won the mandate of the people? Have they gone into an election to win that mandate? Are people in agreement with this preference? That is a question. Again, now if you talk about a political party, that is alternate leadership. If majorly all your political party representatives, Shakha Pramukhs, Shakhas, Up Shakha Pramukhs, continue to be with our leader, then what preference are we talking about? That was an engineered preference created to create a split in the minds of the people. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. And it will only, I would agree to this point of view only when there is an election that takes place and he comes out as more preferred than the Shiv Sena, the original Shiv Sena. It's as simple as that.
Ma'am, I have a question. Yeah. So after spending so many decades in the politics and seeing so many people, parties, changing so many desks as a politician, how would you differentiate public service, social service, and politics? And do you see yourself as one of the cabinet ministers in next 10 years?
Only if you all take the leap of faith.
Of course.
Take that leap of faith. Now that you've actually, you've dangled a carrot right in front of me, please take that leap of faith. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But that would only depend on how you all vote. So please. The second question about having changed, having seen 2 decades of being in politics, actually 1.5, but still, I'm not that old, but no, that's a joke. Whatever I have seen, I have only seen a respect for talent, and there is definitely a dearth of talent in political systems, and there is no political party which does not want good, talented people coming into the fray, coming into the system, and changing how we mold our thoughts and mold the thoughts of the next generation. The second good thing that has come out, and I would say it came out of the entire anti-corruption movement in the country, where we saw people who are working in service industry, who were active, senior professionals, etc., take time out and spend some time in this movement, simply because they thought that enough is enough and we need to be involved and engaged in this entire democratic process. We cannot just shrug our shoulders and say, हमने वोट कर दिया 5 साल और फिर जो करें करें, कोई अल्टरनेटिव नहीं है, अरे हम तो अपने टैक्स भर रहे हैं, हम तो अपना काम कर रहे हैं, काम तो है, रोजगार तो है, बच्चे विदेश में बैठे हुए हैं, हमें क्या लेना देना. That has changed. Now they want to be part of the system, and more importantly, and I love saying this repeatedly, which many people do not talk about it often, women are saying that we want to be stakeholders. We don't want to be on the margins of politics. We want to be in the positions of power, to be mainstream, to be speaking, and we are willing to spend our time and effort, energies into a political narrative. Actually, I started from social work, and I thought I could take it to a bigger platform through politics, because whatever I was experiencing from social work and where I was seeing the policy gaps happen, I thought if I get into politics after this experience, I would be able to bridge that gap. And to some extent, whether it is about women's issues, whether it is about talking about digital spaces, whether it is talking about our external affairs relationships, I have been able to contribute my little bit. So social work is also an offshoot of being sensitive to other people's needs and requirements. Being sensitive when you're drafting a policy, and even if you're in opposition, when you speak with that conviction, because it comes out of an inclusive, sensitive idea of what you've contributed through your social work spaces. So everything's interlinked. I think we should stop living in these silos that, civil society is different, politics is different. Civil society to politics is a very smooth transition, and I think many people should be engaged on both fronts.
Yes. Thank you. So I wanted to ask about something you said about environmental policy. So you said it's very important that we be conscious of our environment, right? And then you talked about the coastal road as well. Now, for context, I'm not anti-coastal road, but I do believe that the environmental impact surveys that have been done prior to the construction of this road, planned construction, have not been done accurately. And I think that's a point that's been sort of put forward by a lot of different people. So when you talk about environmental responsibility and then you talk about infrastructure, how do we weigh the two against each other? And the coastal road is a project that has been led by the Shiv Sena. Why was there no consideration for the environment when this project was conceptualized or approved?
So 2 things about approvals. It has gone right up to the Supreme Court and it has found a stamp of approval. So that would be incorrect to say that we haven't been, those who are behind this entire idea have not been able to prove that. As far as the environmental impact assessment is concerned, when I say environment, when we say a sustainable development and sustainable environmental development, keeping all of that in mind, you look at what pros and cons come into the picture. There's a huge amount of traffic that leads towards the suburbs. And there are very few narrow roads in the city of Mumbai. City cannot expand any further. City would only have to either go vertical, rather than the horizontal slums that we see, we go vertical. And the second, being able to create, even if we are reclaiming some part of the sea, being able to create an infrastructure which will ensure, whether you talk about fuel wastage, the traffic stoppage that happens, various other activities that this will resolve. I think you look at the minuses and the positives, and when your positives outweigh, and you also ensure that you are creating a parallel, environmental, if there is any kind of environmental challenges here, we're creating a parallel mechanism which will balance the two, then I think we would have addressed the problem. If we talk about, yeah. I'll have to personally look that up because that's a very specific question you're asking of me, that which environmental impact assessment will be the right impact assessment and the correct impactful assessment, which has been, I must say one thing, that no project can take off without environmental clearances. No project in this country can take off without those clearances. Those clearances were challenged in the Supreme Court and Mumbai High Court. And we've overcome that. But if in case you're asking me of specific ones, I won't have anything right away to show you, but I would be happy to share it once I, go back home and have the details with me. I wouldn't want to say something, jump the gun and say something. I'll do that happily so. Surely, surely, surely. I'm sure they'll exempt the politicians. I'm certain he will not implement this. He's just making a big noise about it.
Okay. No, I think you heard. I just wanted to know if Priyanka would pay $8 a month to Twitter for her blue tick. She expects to be exempted because she's a politician. I think that's La La Land because that guy needs to recover his money. So.
It is quite interesting, the entire idea that he's brought about.
Yeah.
I think it actually gets you to start thinking that these private-owned social media companies are playing with your, whatever you all have created. They're ultimately like pulling the strings and saying, dude, you all have had all the run now, it's our time now. And actually they've entirely had their run. We were just a product in their hands and we continue to be.
Okay. Priyanka, thank you. It was a wonderful conversation. I wish you and Shiv Sena, as you see it, and the party you represent and the leadership you represent, a great deal of good luck. We are looking forward to the elections as and when they happen, the BMC ones, and then, of course, we'll see. Thank you. Wish you good luck.